Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Brothers in Arms, a new way for men to talk. I am your host, comedian Edgar Rivera, and I'm joined today by my brothers, Dr. Dan Ratner and comedian Eric Nieves. What's up, brothers?
Great to see you, Edgar.
Good to see you.
Edgar, what's going on? Dr. Dan, how's everything?
It's good. How are you, Eric?
Feeling good, man. Feeling good. Curtis Sliwa did not win for mayor of New York, so I am happy.
Who?
The Guardian Angel dude, the guy that formed the Guardian Angels. You remember that guy with the red beret?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he ran for mayor.
And he didn't win.
Dude, the fact that he ran. I mean, come on, man. He was doing karate kicks in the 70s to fight crime, and now he wants to be mayor?
I mean, anybody could do
see
it
what
nowadays.
you see what Donald Trump did to this country?
Listen, Jesse the Body Ventura was the governor of Minnesota. The pathway was already being smoothed out for these kinds of people.
And Jerry Springer was the mayor of Cincinnati.
Oh,
That's
speaking
true.
of which, I met Jerry Springer. He is a great guy. Seriously. Oh my God, he is fantastic.
Did he give
I'll
you his
tell you
final
stories
thoughts? Did he give you his final thoughts before he left, or did he,
We didn't do that. He didn't announce it.
And you
He
didn't-
did.
you didn't have
he
a
did
cousin
say
you
a
were
final
sleeping
thought. I mean, eventually he stopped talking.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And you weren't arguing with a cousin about sleeping with the same girl or anything like that?
No,
when
I
he
mean
showed up?
it's hilarious actually. He really, that's so not him. He's actually a perfect person to bring up in this episode because he is seriously one of the kindest people I've ever met. He's fantastic.
Awesome.
Never would have thought Dr. Dan would say.
I was going to say, like, you know,
Springer.
if you would have woke me up this morning and said, today you're going to hear a positive testimonial about Jerry Springer, I would have told you were crazy. But here
Just,
we
just
are.
wait. If you spend 1 minute with Jerry Springer, you'll be like, dude, you are like one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's
I mean,
so
he
generous.
seems like a good guy, you know. He seems, that's just the crazy people that go on his show. That's the ones we got to worry about, but not him. He seems pretty
That's
cool.
a good point. He wasn't
He-
ripping anybody's weave off on the TV. So
he didn't
was just
even know what was coming. He would just set on stage and they would just have this unfold, and you can see him being
Really?
very uncomfortable because he's a very empathic person. This is hilarious that this is happening in this episode because he's a very kind man.
Nice, man. So yeah, I mean, Dr. Dan, how was your week after talking about Jerry Springer?
Yeah, I spent very little of this week talking about Jerry Springer, but
Until now.
it's been a great one. Just launched my membership program and. You know, feeling a lot of kindness in action, and of course that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's been a really great and inspiring week. How about you guys?
Nice, Eric. Go ahead.
No, I mean, it's been great. You know, holidays are coming up. Excited about that. Get to spend some time with family. You know, I'm a big fan of the holidays. You know,
Yeah.
you know, I like Thanksgiving. I like, you know, getting together. Thanksgiving is actually my favorite because there's no gifts involved. You just eat. So, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you could bring, all you have to bring is like a pie. You know, like when you know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to eating
You
some
said a
bird and
pie?
watching football with the family.
Nice, man. I'm happy
about you?
that Halloween is finally over. I feel like Halloween this year felt like a long week, you know? Like the kids started trick-or-treating on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm like, man, you know, I'm happy that, you know, you get your money's worth out of the costume, you know, because like you got to wear it like 4 days in a row, you know? I mean, when I was little, I look at kids, man, I'm a hater. I realize, Dr. Dan and Eric, I'm a hater. I look at these kids and how good they got it, and I'm like, you know, because I'm like, they get all these great costumes and all these different costumes. And when I was little, I think about my costumes and my mother.
Oh, what was
My
the
mother-
worst one?
My
Is
mother
there
made
one-
me. I was a cowboy ninja one time. Because my
I'm sorry,
mom
what?
liked to recycle costumes. So one year I was a ninja, and then the following year I was a cowboy, and she still made me rock the sword. I'm like, Mom, this makes no sense.
Well, it's like a hybrid of some sorts.
yeah. Whatever costumes you wore from the past 4 years, that's exactly what you were. And the next
Dan, you
year.
any costumes that you of yours that growing up was like the worst?
Oh, I'm not really remembering the worst. I mean, the one that I loved the most was when I was a football player. I remember getting to put on like the pads and stuff. I mean, it was great.
Oh,
But I see kids today, and they have like the full like Spider-Man outfit with the muscles, and I'm like, man, if I had gotten to do that, that would be cool.
they look like movie sets. I wanted to be Robin one year from Batman and Robin. So my mother just took a yellow shirt and just had me tie the top button and wear the rest of it on my back, and then did eyeliner as a mask and said, "You're Robin now." Wrote a big R on my T-shirt.
That's
Hey,
hilarious.
that's better than Cowboy Ninja.
Well, at least they knew what he was. I look like a homeless Robin. Like, I look like the one that Batman left behind. Like, he's like, nah, man, I'd rather take Dick Grayson. You're the
like
bad
washed out Robin. that's
Robin's always getting left behind, so you just were embodying it.
Nice.
I was the epitome of Robin.
Did you guys get dressed up for this past Halloween, Dr. Dan?
I did not. My kids, of course, dressed up. We did the trick or treating thing. I mean, it is true though. Halloween has become this thing that's like a month long. I mean, I know they may do it for 4 days, but like the whole world, especially when I lived in Brooklyn, that place changes for like maybe even 6 weeks.
Yes.
And you know what's interesting? My kids, they were little then, and they would get scared by a lot of the things that were out there. This also fits with today's episode because I think Halloween, it can be a lot of fun, especially for older kids. But for the younger kids, actually, there's some unkindness in it, potentially. People trying to scare each other. I mean, look, I don't mean to be overly therapist-y, but the fact is, there are these little kids who can get really scared by it. So just, take it easy on how scary it is.
What about you, Eric? Did you get dressed up?
No, not this year. But as you know, I got married on Halloween, so we usually take costumes very seriously. But this year, we just went with "Till Death Do Us Part" T-shirts to celebrate. I think Halloween has become more of an adult holiday, which is why I think it's becoming so extended. Because I think Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's about the whole family, the kids, the grandkids, grandpa. Halloween, I think it gives adults a great chance to just escape their lives for a couple of hours and just be something else for a day. You know what I mean? So I think that's why there's such a buildup, because they prepare for their costumes and they plan them. I think it's a great escape for people, for adults.
I think Halloween is every day if you really think about it. If you put it in those words, everybody has a Halloween day every day. If you get away and escape,
All right.
I was thing one.
Dressed like a cowboy pirate every day. Why didn't you come today dressed as a cowboy pirate?
Eric, this is his cowboy pirate outfit. But his mom was just skimping on it,
Got it. I got it.
Come on, you can't see the
totally
sword.
Sorry
it's under
about
the
that,
desk. I was thing one for Halloween this year. Actually, I brought a costume. I got invited to a Halloween party, and I can't even remember the last time I bought a Halloween costume. Dude, must have been like in high school, I guess, And this year, my friend called me up and she was like, "You better show up to my house in a costume. You show up as yourself, I'm not gonna let you in." And I was like, man, I didn't know what to do. Last year I was pothead. I took a pot and I put it on my head.
Put it on your head. I remember
and
that.
I was a pothead, and that was amazing. Almost won a contest with that. But this year I bought a costume when I was thing one. And I had a blast. It was actually a cool Halloween, but glad that it's over. Looking forward to
That was very
Thanksgiving.
unkind of her to threaten you to not be invited for not having a costume.
I know, right? Can you imagine?
Not kind. Not kind.
It's a little bit of bullying in there, even.
I was going to say, it really fits in with what we're going to talk about today, Edgar. That was not kind.
Yeah. But that's it, man. I'm glad it's over. Like you said, I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving. Not the holidays, not Christmas. I feel like once we get old and we got to buy the gifts, it's not the same, So I don't look forward to December at all. But I am looking forward to Thanksgiving. And I am looking forward to getting into this episode today. So with that being said, let's go into it, Dr. Dan. Bring us in.
All right. It's time for old news. Maybe from yesterday.
That's right, because it's only old news because we haven't talked about it today. But we're going to talk about it today, and what we're going to talk about is the recent hosting of SNL by Jason Sudeikis, who I'm a big fan of. I think he was a long-term cast member on Saturday Night Live. Very talented, very funny. And I'm sure everybody knows right now he's currently starring on the show Ted Lasso, which surprisingly has become a very huge hit. And I wanted to lead off the show with a quote from his monologue, because what he said really struck a chord with Dr. Dan, and we had talked about it before the show. The line is really like, the show has become such a massive hit, which was truly shocking because it's built around two things that Americans hate: kindness and soccer. Now, I can understand Americans not understanding soccer. It's more of an international sport, and when we think football, we think the NFL. But the one thing that I think we need to talk about is, why do Americans hate kindness? When did kindness become something in America that isn't just something that we do every day? When did it become a sign of weakness or something that you only save for your closest friends and family? Because I think that that's really missing in today's world. I think we're so focused on the grittiness and everything and the crime and the COVID-19 pandemic. And you saw some acts of kindness when the pandemic hit, but in general, day to day, it seems like kindness is taboo and not something that is loved in America. And I wanted to talk about this with you guys and get your viewpoint on it.
Well, one thing that I wanted to say is that the response to Ted Lasso, you could say it's surprising, but in a way, based on what you just said, you can understand why people love it so much. I certainly do. It's one of my favorite shows in a long time, and it's the kind of show that's my favorite because of that kind of kindness element. But it actually shows you how hungry we are for it. People, it's like they won't admit they want it, but when they see it in some kind of form that's, I guess, cool enough, or I don't know how we describe that, they're so hungry for it. People just love it. So it is interesting, though, for us to just think about, well, what does this mean? Why do we have like 25 different crime shows, like just death and horrible crimes, and actually with Halloween, people are just thinking about the dark stuff all the time, or even a show like Breaking Bad, which is a fantastic show, but speaking of gritty and dark and not kind, God, you can only take so much of that. That's not a show I could rewatch. Ted Lasso, I want to rewatch now.
Yeah. I feel the same way, man. I saw it back to back, season 1 and 2, and I started again watching season 1 again, because sometimes we watch things and then you miss it and then you watch the second time around. But I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, I've heard, it won a lot of Grammys, right? I mean, like 7, 8 Grammys, something like that.
That's Grammys are for music.
Yeah, you won Emmys.
Emmys. Singers win Grammys.
So it won a lot of Emmys, like 8 Emmys, so it made a big deal. And then when I started watching it, I was like, oh man, this is cool. The first episode got me, and then I started getting into it. And it's crazy how you said, how hard is it to accept kindness, how hard it is to be kind. And then you see someone like Ted Lasso, and you be like, you could actually see him as a corny person because he is kind. And it's crazy how someone would label him like, oh, that's a corny guy right there. Why is he like that? But meanwhile, he's changing people's lives day by day. They don't even know it,
Well, one of the best things about Ted Lasso, too, is how comfortable he is with himself. That's actually and listen, as you watch the show, you find he's not totally comfortable with himself in every way, but he's very comfortable with that side of himself. Very comfortable. And that is part of what's refreshing. And people can say, oh, he's corny. If you said to Ted Lasso he's corny, he would take it in stride. He doesn't care. He's just going to go on being him.
He would probably laugh. How do you feel, Eric? Because, I know we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, and you finally just got into it. And yesterday you had only watched a couple of episodes, and now you're done with season 1.
Yeah, well, it's very easy to watch. And obviously the character is exaggerated for entertainment purposes. But if you strip him down to what the character is, first of all, it's hilarious, and it's so much fun to watch. And I'm always a big fan of Americans going into Britain and the interactions between the English and Americans. That always makes me laugh. I don't know why. I don't know why, but it just does. But but if you strip him down to what he basically is, he's someone that just has a genuine respect and liking of everybody he meets. He's genuine. He's honest. And he wants what's best for the people around him, and he's not consumed by things like just winning. He's more worried about his players being them best selves than being champions. And, and just in that, a lot of guys would be like, yo, that's mad corny. You know what I mean? But the thing is, it shouldn't be corny. We should actually look for those qualities in people. I think when people experience kindness, I think the world has become so dark and we've become so reflexively defensive that I think we react to kindness as some kind of Trojan horse of a person trying to get through to you and using kindness to do it. And because I think there's been a lot of people that have abused kindness to ingratiate themselves to people and take advantage. So I think people are skeptical of kindness when they see it.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Dan. Why is it so hard for people to be kind?
Well, first of all, one thing we're pointing out is the response to it. There is some kind of like putting on the brakes of kindness, and this goes to the heart of your question. I actually think that kindness, it brings people closer, and with all the trauma in the world, I think people are afraid of getting close. They're kind of like, hey, listen, I mean, I found this growing up. Actually, Eric, you reminded me of it too when we talked about our growing up and how we had some similarities. We brought a lot of kindness to the table, and you got friend zoned. I had people who were like it's too intense or something. And not that I was intense, but I was just kind. And I couldn't understand it. I was like, why is everybody running screaming from this kindness? And I think it really is. It's been one of the great reliefs of my life that as people grow up, they actually like it more. They genuinely do. There was a way in which I felt like I was 40 years old in high school. Just walking around ready to be kind, not understanding why everybody was like, if you show any sign of kindness, I'm going to nail you. So there's society kind of shutting it down, but there's also this personal worry about closeness, I think. Closeness is a wonderful thing, but it requires a lot of trust. It's one thing that I feel on this show. We talk about things in a way that I really like, and I enjoy the show, but I also feel close to you guys in a way where I know if I'm kind, you're not going to shut me down for it, which is part of what this show is about, I think. I don't know if I answered your question
how you said that some people are hard to accept kindness. And I guess now, like you said, Eric, with everything happening on after this pandemic and all the hate in the world, I just find it so hard to believe that someone could not see the kindness in someone, and it's weird.
I think especially from a male perspective, I mean, to receive kindness and to give kindness both require, in my opinion, some level of vulnerability that not every man is comfortable in reaching. You have to kind of lower your guard to be kind, and you also have to lower your guard to receive kindness and take it as a genuine affection, a genuine thing. And I think that as men, vulnerability is not our strong suit in a lot of areas, and I think a little of that spills over to the ability to just be kind because we're afraid of showing our vulnerability and showing our weakness.
And, I'm glad you used that word because kindness is mistaken for weakness all the time. It's one of the things I love about Ted Lasso. He's not weak at all. He might be kind. The first moment actually you see that he's not weak, he's being all kind and seems naive. And then suddenly he says, he's talking about tea, and he's like, this is garbage water. He jumps in there, and you realize it's not like he has no edge whatsoever. So his kindness is not the same as weakness. This is the first moment you see that. I think it's in the first episode.
Oh, he carries it through the whole season. Like, nope, still don't like it. Still don't like it.
Right. So I think when we confuse kindness with weakness, we really do ourselves a disservice. And actually, I take it a step further, which is that I am ferociously kind. And what I mean by that is it's not just that I'm going to be kind. If I see somebody being kind and they get shut down, I'm going straight to their side to defend them. Because kindness is too rare in this world, and I think we really have to fight for it. And it's why I think Ted Lasso is actually a very important show. It's an important show in this sea of aggression and horrificness.
I like the fact that he never gives up. Because like you said, you're extra kind. You like being kind, So how are you kind? And then you go up to someone and you're kind to them and they don't accept it. They brush you off, and for someone to be like, oh, you know what? F that person. I'm never going to be nice to that person again. And that's the attitude of most people nowadays. You see kindness. Like for example, you go to the mall, you open a door and then you hold the door for the person behind you and they don't even say thank you. And then that gets you mad and you're like, man, you know what? I'm not holding the door for nobody. But that's not the way we should be. That's why I feel that kindness is fading away, because people are just going off what everybody else is doing. And if you look at Ted Lasso, he's a perfect example. From the very beginning, he's kind, even though no matter they threw at him, he still never changed. And eventually, what I've got from it is that if you don't get him the first time around, you might get him the second, you might get him the third, but eventually they'll warm up to you, and accept it, and it's so weird how people do not accept kindness nowadays, or be thankful for them.
I'm shocked, Edgar, that you're still going to the mall I mean, really? You're still going to the mall?
Dude,
I
really?
just wanted to make sure I heard that right.
You don't go to the
You
mall?
lost me. You lost me at mall. I'm like, what? You still
Dude,
go to the mall?
After this pandemic,
but-
I wanted to go to the mall.
No, but you bring up a good you do bring up a good point in that when someone gets mad if they don't get a thank you when you're opening the door. I think the most important aspect of being kind is you're not doing it for any kind of reciprocation. You can't expect anything from it except the feeling that you get from being kind. Otherwise, it's not a true act of kindness. To me, it's kind of an exchange. You know what I mean? Like you're asking for some kind of currency from a person to justify or feel good about your good act. No, listen, if you want to open the door because you want to open the door, not because you expect people to say thank you, because that's where you fall into the trap. You shouldn't expect anything from anybody when you're being kind. I mean, you're happy if people show gratitude, but it shouldn't be a reason behind being kind, in my opinion.
I totally
good
agree
one.
with that, but I have a slightly different take or a related take, which is I still understand why people are disappointed, though, when it doesn't happen. And I think part of that is that there are many of us, I can certainly speak for myself, but there are many of us who do dream of an actual kinder world. And when we see that happen, it can be disappointing. I think you're right to not confuse that with, oh, that's why I did it, or there should be some kind of exchange. Completely agree with that. But it can be disappointing when the world has such a negative viewpoint. And that's why I think a show like Ted Lasso, it inspires hope. There's some other shows that I've seen that are some of my favorite shows. Did you guys ever see Friday Night Lights? The
I
show?
have not.
Yeah. Long
You did?
time ago, yeah.
Friday Night
Football,
Lights.
The high school football, right?
Yeah, I mean, ironically, it's another kind of football. But the thing I liked about it is there's some real kindness and heart in it. And I hadn't seen many shows like that. There's another show called Parenthood that's like that as well, that doesn't shy away from it. It's fiercely kind. And Ted Lasso's, he's got a goofiness to him that adds to the picture, but
I think that's going to help to get the message across, though. The
It
fact
will.
that it's like, when you have to trick kids into eating something healthy by making it into an airplane. It's like teaching people how to be kind without being heavy-handed about it and making them laugh through it. I'm hoping it'll inspire more people. I'm sorry if I interrupted.
No, I totally agree with what you're saying, and it makes me hopeful. It's actually one of the things I like. I enjoy the show just for the show. I enjoy it because of the message that it's sending, but I also enjoy it because I think it's going to be effective in sending the message. I mean, this character is so likable, and he becomes more and more believable as a full person, which only makes it even better.
Yeah. It is.
Now, I know Edgar's dying to talk about the current
You can just
status.
see it. You can see it
Because I could see
over his
Edgar's
head.
little wheels like, oh my God, because I haven't seen the second season yet. And listen, I still watch a boxing match, even if I know who won, because it's the journey of the 12 rounds that I enjoy. So it won't be a major spoiler. You're not going to hurt my feelings,
Well-
but I have heard that the second season becomes far more complex, and the character becomes much more textured. Is there any aspect of where he is now that you guys want to talk about that links to the subject of kindness?
After seeing season 2, man, and getting to know the character itself, I appreciate him more. Because no matter what he's going through deep down inside, as kind as he is to everyone else around him and brings that kindness and brings people together, deep down inside, this character is pretty effed up, inside. So he needs the most work himself.
But
You'll see that.
You know what's really great about the show and him in that way? They do not confuse complicated with unkind. This happens all the time. People are like, oh, so complicated that he can't just stay kind. This show is unflinching about that. They're like, no, he can still be who he is, totally kind, but also have this complicated part. I really think that's a key part of why this show works, is that they do not confuse things. They don't confuse kindness with weakness. They don't confuse kindness with uncomplicated either. And they're able to show that in a nuanced way. And, speaking of kindness, I'm not going to do any spoilers because that's unkind. But what I will say, this is just I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's a therapist that becomes involved in the. Oh my God! Edgar's like, "Why did you? I can't believe you said that." But there's a therapist.
I'm down to talk about that too, Dr. Dan, and I don't want to spoil it for Eric, but I've been down to talk to you about that.
Let's not get into the specifics of it, but it's just,
Well, why don't you guys just run lines and get it over with? Why don't you just do the whole episode for me?
All right, episode
that's us being kind,
episode 1
Eric.
of season 2. But there's a therapist that gets involved, and that relationship shows something else also, which is a kind of two-way street, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart as a therapist. I think a lot of therapists hold people at arm's length. I think the lack of kindness in the world is holding people at arm's length. And this show is all about bringing in. Let's get closer.
Mm-hmm. It's about, like I said, I like the way that he keeps on and on and on and on. You know what I'm saying? Like I said earlier, some people will be kind and then they don't get. It's not like you're doing it, Eric. It's not like I'm being kind because I want you to acknowledge me being kind. But in some way, somehow, I could understand what Dr. Dan says when you're kind and you don't get that. Not even a thank you, but hopefully, the attitude. And what I hope to do is be kind enough that eventually for that person that doesn't acknowledge my kindness, maybe they'll go about their day and be like, and eventually not give up. Because that's the problem. I think the problem is that we're kind. And then the minute we don't get what we want, then boom.
Yeah.
I don't need to be kind to that person no more. And it's not what this show is about. This show is showing us that, you don't get it the first time, you don't get it the second time, you don't get it the third time, but you keep going. And eventually you'll bring out the best in people.
Well, not only that, but it's like what Eric said. Ted Lasso, even though he's got his complicated parts and he's not happy in certain ways, being kind makes him happy. I was watching the show with my wife, and she said something to me. I'm not even joking. This is probably the highest compliment I feel like she's ever paid me. She looked over at me during an episode of Ted Lasso and was like, "He reminds me of you." And I was like, "Oh my God." My eyes actually watered.
You hate tea?
I don't hate tea, actually. I don't think it's garbage water, but I mean, do you know what I mean? Why that would be such a high compliment? I was like, "Oh my God."
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's kind. I guess
mean,
that's her
but
way
here's
of
the
saying
other
you're
thing.
a kind, gentle soul, right?
And my wife tends to be on the quieter side about things like that, and it just caught me in a certain way. I was like, man. And I think the reason that it hit me so much is it's so close to the heart of how I try to live and want to live. Like, I see Ted Lasso and I'm just like, yes, that is how I like to live. I mean, I don't do everything his way. Like, I couldn't just have a mustache.
You wouldn't play the 90s hip-hop music? I mean, he started off the meeting with A Tribe Called Quest. I don't think that would have been your song choice to start off.
No, right. So there's all kinds of things about Ted.
We're going to start off with a little Q-tip.
Hey, Dr. Dan, let me ask you something. You think the most kindest people are the ones that are messed up the most deep down inside?
That's a great question. I think that kindness often comes from trauma. Which is not to say that's the only place it comes from. I think there's kindness within human beings just generally, thankfully. But I do think when people have trauma, it can really drive things. Actually, this is reminding me of what you were talking about before we started the show about Robin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Tell that. I'm going to leave that to you. Because he was driven by some trauma, and he did some incredibly kind things. So I would just want to hear what you had to say about that.
So I read up that in every production that he was in, he asked the production team to hire a homeless person just to get them off the streets and put some money in their pockets. And throughout his whole career, he helped hundreds of people who were homeless. And that's a beautiful thing. And I never knew that. I just read that up today. Today I found that out. And I was like, wow, very interesting. And how kind. And that's why I asked you the question, because deep down inside, look how Robin Williams, nobody knew who Robin Williams was. The nicest person, the funniest person, the kindest person, but deep down inside, he was effed up. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I asked you, you think the most kindest people are the ones that are like messed up the most? Even with Ted Lasso, I don't know, he was going through the the divorce with his wife and the marriage and the marriage not working out, being apart from his kid, you know, being on a whole different side of the world and leaving his family behind. And I don't know about you guys. Some days I wake up and I'm not bothered, but I'm just down. I don't wanna do nothing. I don't wanna bother nobody. You know, like if I have an issue in my head, if I have something bothering me, you could actually see it because I can't put it to the side and be that better person. And that's why I think this character is so amazing because he's going through something that no one knows, but yet, boom, here he goes, fucking doing something amazing for someone else, you know?
I think a lot of times kindness, and I don't mean it as it's not true kindness, but I do think kindness can sometimes be driven as a way to try to conquer trauma. To say the world was this harsh, difficult place, I'm going to kind of be the change in the world that I want to see. And they go ahead and do that. I think it's true for a lot of the best qualities that we see in people. You see the most ambitious people are often, it comes from trauma. You see the people who are the kindest. You see the funniest people a lot of times. It comes from knowing that pain.
Yeah, I think you learn that there are ways you don't want other people to feel because you felt certain things coming up, growing up, and you want to make sure you do anything and everything possible that you're not going to make anyone feel that feeling ever. You know what I mean? I think that's one of the reasons why I'm always trying to make people laugh, no matter the situation. Always trying to lighten the room, because there were a lot of dark rooms coming up in life, and the one thing I knew that could break the ice was a good joke, a good laugh, crack a smile, and it's just something that it just comes naturally to me. I don't care, even if I don't know anybody in the room. I don't care. I just want to make people laugh. You know what I mean? I want to lighten the mood. And you don't need to be a comedian to do it, because I know I could tell by you, Dr. Dan, you crack up some rooms in your own right without a stage. You know what I mean? So, and Edgar, obviously, you're a comedian. You know how we do. We love it when we love it when we're in a room full of smiles, and I think a part of it has to do with the lack of smiles we probably saw coming up.
Well, and it really is true. When you're making a whole room laugh, everybody's connected at that moment. Like it's kind of an underrated part of comedy, or at least it's a not as talked about part of comedy. When everybody's laughing at the same thing, we are finally all together. Like, how often does that happen? That's pretty amazing.
Across racial, age, gender, doesn't matter. Funny is funny. Even in music, there are lines between music. And even when you're listening to music in a concert, most of the time you're singing along to it. You're not really listening to anything new. When you go to a room and you're all listening to just stuff none of you have ever heard before. And funny just cuts across a lot of stuff. The same way I think kindness does. Kindness, everybody loves to laugh, and everybody loves to receive kindness. Even if they have challenges receiving it, everybody loves it. There are very few things everybody can agree upon. Everybody loves to have a kind thing happen to them. I've had many of them in my life. Any of you guys have like a moment of kindness that you didn't expect that sticks out in your head?
Well, actually, I was going to say that this brings us into our next segment, because you let it in well. We were going to do this segment. We're now going to do this segment called Brotherly Love. And
I don't know. I just wanted to say
we got to come up with like a brotherly love.
Yeah, I know. We gotta work on that.
We got to come up with some fun songs.
Everything evolves on this show.
Yes.
This is the opening.
When we come back for season 2.
if you guys follow us, the first episode, we didn't even know we were doing an episode. That's how we do. We didn't even have a name for the show in the first episode. So yes,
you could tell by the camera angles.
When I think about acts of kindness, more often than not in my life, I'm the one who's doing the act of kindness more often. But it's a major reason I live where I live. This is a very kind place. It truly is, and it kind of heals my soul, as people do these little acts of kindness. It really does help. Edgar, let's have you respond to Eric's question first, unless I'm throwing you under the bus, in which case I'll save you.
No, what's crazy?
Or we'll give you a Grammy,
or an Emmy, or a Tony.
an
I
EGOT.
feel
You keep this going, it's going to be a Razzie. So let's just
I feel the same way, Dr. Dan. I feel the same way as you. I feel like I'm always the one with the, providing the kindness, So, and it's hard. I mean, you said that's why you love living where you live. So, I don't know. I mean, we don't know where you live, but it's like a small town.
It's a suburb of Cleveland. It's called Shaker Heights, Ohio. And
Yeah, it sounds like a small town. Very, very small town.
it's actually not as small as you might think. I think there's about 35,000 people here.
But then,
that's
okay,
not
so
small. That's Co-op City.
that's the Bronx. But so growing up in the Bronx, right, and then like seeing it, like, and I'm pretty sure you could vouch for this, Eric. Like where he's at, he could see the kindness in people. Small town, and coming from New York and being in New York and walking on the street where there's 10, 20 people around you, everybody's in their own world, everybody has their own mind, and going crazy. It's much harder to be kind to people. But
I think now it's much harder, but I do remember a time when we were younger, Edgar. New York was a little different. It wasn't as, neighborhoods looked out for their neighbors. You know what I mean? Neighborhoods stuck together in New York back in the day. I think it's far more segmented and fragmented now than it was, because I do remember feeling kindness from my neighbors and looking out for me when my mother was working, and the store owner that would let me buy stuff even though I wasn't old enough to buy it, but he knew I was buying it for my mom, so he would let me buy the pack of Marlboros. I think the neighborhoods were kinder. I think neighbors looked out for each other now. I think everybody's so about the individual compared to the community. I think it's changed a lot, because even if you lived in a really poor neighborhood and nobody had any money, you could see acts of kindness, people sharing food with someone that can't leave the building because the elevator's broken, so people go and bring that person food. I think the acts are there. I think that you always have to have your guard up, but I think there are acts of kindness still. It was better back when I was young.
I think some of it also, I mean, having lived in Brooklyn for 15 years, so I've certainly got my New York experience, and I love New York in lots of ways, but some of it also is, especially as things get gentrified and there's like people just coming in and moving out, there's less ownership of the place. And it's one of the things I love about living here. The people who live here, they might be from here, but even if they're not, they tend to move here and stay. The turnover, the lack of investment in each other is I think a big part of the problem. I mean, even when you think about shows on TV, speaking of investment, you watch Ted Lasso, you get invested in these characters. I can guarantee you, when this show winds up and it's not going to do another show, I'll feel like I lost friends. That's what it's going to feel like. But when you watch like CSI, it's one and done. It's just like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe people do get into. By the way,
there's like CSI in 50 cities, like CSI.
Oh, I know.
It's going to be like
whenever
CSI,
a show has
CSI Albuquerque. FBI has 3 different. They have 3 FBI shows. FBI Most Wanted, FBI International, FBI copyright infringements coming soon.
I know. When
FBI bootleg movies.
When a show has a colon in the title, you know you're in trouble.
It's always going to be bad. It's always going to be bad. But you know what? You make it see, Dr. Dan, when I was younger, people stayed in the neighborhoods they lived in for a long time, and our neighbors were long-term neighbors. So there was a sense of community, even if it was only within a 2-block radius. There was a community within that 2 blocks. I think you're right now. It's just so segmented, and people just move in and out. The communities don't have the time to build anymore. And there's a lack of trust in each other, in people, that has gotten worse as time has gone on. There was a little more of a sense of an innocence back in the day that you could have a certain level of trust, but it's hard to have that now these days. But we need to get that back.
I do want to bring up, I mean, there's so many different kinds of acts of kindness that we can talk about, but one of the ones that is one of my favorites to do is to look out and see who in this room is feeling left out, and how can I bring them in? Because that's a feeling, it's not even a feeling that I had so much, but I watch it and I'm thinking, who's the one who's hurting here? I don't need to include somebody who's feeling great about everything. Let me bring in the person who feels not included. I love to do that sort of thing.
Well, that's like Ted Lasso brought in the coach, the coach's name, Nate.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
and Eric in season 2, Nate is gonna
Yep.
blow your mind. But that was the
He's
same way.
fun.
And last week's episode was about bullying, and you saw how Nate got bullied in that show, and he didn't even do anything. You notice how Ted Lasso didn't do nothing. The guy was like, "You're not gonna do nothing about it," and he was like, "No." And then like by him telling that guy no, it automatically, pass the torch over to him. Now you handle it. And then it's like he didn't have to be the tough guy. So it's interesting, man. Kindness, it's a thing that we need to do without expectations.
Yeah.
And it has
Basically.
positive effects on your health. And I know, Dr. Dan, you'll appreciate this because you're the mind-body guy. I mean, I always do some kind of research. And, it's acts of kindness. There was a study, people 55 and older who volunteer for organizations that help the less fortunate, they have a 44% lower likelihood of dying early. 44%. It lowers depression rates. It lowers blood pressure. It helps to reduce anxiety and stress and even pain. Because the act of kindness releases endorphins, which is the brain's natural painkiller. So the act of kindness can have a positive effect on your body.
I'm so glad you brought it up, and of course it goes right into what I do. So I would be glad that you brought it up. But the way I think about unkindness, I actually think about it as violence. I don't just think about it as unkindness. I think of it as violence. It's a
bullying.
What are we going to say, Edgar?
Like bullying, right? Like almost like.
Well, yeah, and it's because of what Eric's saying. Bullying isn't just like, this unpleasant thing you don't like. It can invade your soul, and it can do things that make it really hard on your body. Actually, I've thought about this a lot. Certainly with certain minority communities, the African American community, for example, they have a lot of trauma, and then they get labeled by medicine as having some kind of genetic predisposition to problems. That's actually not the case, generally speaking. More often than not, and there have been studies that show this, if people have experienced trauma, and unkindness is a trauma, especially if it is repeated and it's deep and penetrates who you feel you are, they have higher rates of heart disease and diabetes and cancer. Like, this is not minor stuff we're talking about. Kindness is that important. And that's why when I see a show like Ted Lasso, I'm like, thank you. It feels like somebody's come to help me and help those of us who really feel this is important. And look, I feel everybody knows this is important, but they don't know how important. So I'm really glad you brought that up, Eric, because the fact that it actually can alter life expectancy.
I mean,
I would say it's mind-blowing.
Blew my
That's exactly
mind. That just goes to show you the impact that the mind has on the body. That just by being kind to others and that energy that you get off it, it can extend your life. And yeah, I guess you could see this when people are doing stuff out of the kindness of their own heart. It gives life a purpose. You know what I mean? Even if you're not getting a bunch of thank yous, when it comes to thank yous for kindness, I take the baseball player's approach. I'm just shooting for 300, 3 out of 10. If you get the 300, if you bat 300, you're a major leaguer. You're almost a Hall of Famer. So if 3 out of 10 people react to the kindness I put out there, I take it as a victory.
This is kind of hilarious, but baseball's batting averages are going way down. So they're not even aiming as high as we were before. I think it's really important that your point is well taken. You're not going to get it all the time, but people being kind to us not only helps us, but us being kind can help us physically too. Mm-hmm. I feel better in my soul from living kindly. And there are times where it not only goes unappreciated, sometimes people actually get like angry about it or push back against it. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I love about Ted. He sees it and he's like, well, it makes me happy. Yeah. And he goes on his way.
That's the most important thing. It makes him happy, and that's why he seems so honest. I want to make sure we get back to talking about our new segment, because I really, really want to get this off the ground running. As a lot of you know, we were doing Walking the Walk, which was the last segment of our previous shows, where either one of us or a guest talked about an experience or an issue or something that was bothering them. And we wanted to kind of expand that segment and extend it to people outside of our circle, because there's a lot of people that are doing things that are really promoting the message to, promote mental health and promote random acts of kindness. So we wanted to acknowledge somebody that we wanted to give them respect for kind of carrying out our message. And we call it showing some brotherly love. So we want to show some brotherly love to people that are doing things out there to make a difference. So I want to introduce you to this week's Brotherly Love winner. This is a gentleman, actually, in 2018. There were wildfires in California, and if you live in California, you know that happens practically every year. There are wildfires. The 2018 wildfires were particularly damaging, and he was watching the news, and he saw a story about a man that escaped from his burning home, and even though he had lost everything, he was just so grateful that he had his little motor home so he could have a place to sleep. So this gentleman named Woody Faircloth came up, looked at his daughter. He lived in Colorado, not even living in California. He turns to his daughter and says, you know what? I think I'm going to try to help somebody in California get an RV to have a place to sleep because I know they're losing homes. He started a GoFundMe page. And fast forward 3 years later, there's now a non-for-profit organization called emergencyrv.org, which pairs people who have been displaced by wildfires in California and pairs them with people that has an RV and a mobile home that they can spare and share with somebody to give somebody a place to live. And right now, they've delivered 90 vehicles over a 3-year period, and they have 100 people on the waiting list. But it all started with one act of kindness from a man named Woody Faircloth in Colorado, who lived nowhere near California, and just decided he wanted to do something nice for somebody just out of the kindness of his heart. And it gave birth to an organization that is now looking to help others. And I just think that's a great story. So, Woody, some brotherly love for you, man.
It's such a great story, Eric. And one of the things I love about it is this idea. It's not like he thought, you know what, this is needed, I'm going to go form this organization. No, it's one thing leads to another. He just was thinking kindly. It got one thing going, and then it led from one thing to another. But I think that's where kindness can do some really great things in a way that's totally realistic, where which is not to say the not-for-profit organization is not realistic, because that obviously happened. You can do that. You can do big things, but you can also do the small things and just set the tone. And this fits with something you said, Edgar, that, maybe you don't get them the first time. Maybe you don't get them the second time. Maybe you get them the third time. But the idea is, if you enjoy doing this, if you enjoy putting that kindness out there, a lot of good stuff can come from it. It's a great story.
And pray that the person that receives that kindness pays it forward, because that's the only way we're going to change this. Like you said, Eric, and how different and how hard it is for kindness to be accepted or given nowadays. And it has to do with the trauma that this world went through with this pandemic and everything else. So I think everybody's still But hopefully, the way I see it is, I'm kind without the expectations, and hope that the expectations don't get into my head where it stops me from being kind because I feel like people don't appreciate it. Because if you want to be kind, if you're genuinely kind, you're doing it, like you said, because I want to do it. Because maybe at the end of the day, that person you were kind to will go home and be like, dude, man, that dude was nice to me. You know what I'm saying? And hopefully he'll pay it forward, and we'll help each other out little by little as we go,
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say, one thing I want to add is, look, I think some people will pay it forward. And so you doing one thing could change all kinds of lives. It really can. I'm not just saying that to be like some, Hallmark special. It really is true. And then in the meantime, the opposite side of the coin is also true. You could see somebody who's being kind, and maybe they get teased for it, or they don't get that validation for it at all, and they give up. They stop. They say, well, what's the point? So I think this is why I say that I'm ferociously kind. Because if I see kindness and somebody's trying to stamp it out, that's like when you're trying to get a fire going in the middle of a cold winter. You gotta protect that fire, because it could go out. I mean, we even see some of the darkest things in pop culture. They relate to this. Like, I'm not sure if I'm even remembering this correctly, but maybe it's my version of it. The movie The Joker. The guy is suffering. He's looking for connection. And when it fails, that's when he goes insane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've got to protect the kindness because it can save people, and it can change our lives.
Mm-hmm. And do it with kindness.
I want to be ferociously kind. That's
what
I want to be. Does that mean you look really good? You should be really fucking proud of yourself. I'm being ferociously kind.
But you know what? Actually, sometimes I do. You know, in the mind-body work that I do, sometimes I will say back to somebody their trauma story in a ferociously. I don't use the tone of voice that's ferocious necessarily, but I'll say to them like, "No, I will not accept that you are posing a kind of watered down version of how important you are. I won't do that."
Yeah, and don't let it change you if you don't get that response. I'll share this with you guys. I did an act of kindness one time. I don't know if you remember this, Eric, but my ex-wife and she had a friend that was a hoarder. This dude, long story short, 18 years, his girl left him. He came home from work and she took everything in the house. He came home to an empty house. And then it turned him into this person. And for 18 years, no one went into his house. And he opened the doors to my ex-wife and I. When I walked in, I was like, oh, dude, there was piles of stuff up to the ceiling, like crazy. And I told him, I said, Dad, I'm going to help you. And it made me feel good to help this person, you know. And it took me almost a year because this dude wanted to go through every little piece of paper, you know, and then I got it. And a year later, I got his apartment cleaned up. And look what happened. The same girl that left him 18 years ago comes into his life a year after I help him clean his place. I'm at the last stages. I'm about to paint the place for him, leave it really nice. And this girl comes back into his life. He starts disappearing. I'm like, dude, are you serious? You know? So he's like, I'm going away on vacation. I'm taking her on vacation. And I say, dude, I need money, man. Can you he wasn't giving me the money. He came into some money and I wanted to, you know, like help me help you, dude, you know, like give me some money so I could put it back into your place and we could make it really nice. And he wasn't budging. So I asked him to lend me some money. That was me the only way that I was going to get money out of him. I said, yo, dude, can you lend me this money? I need this money. And the money he lent me, I doubled and I put right back into his place. You know, I put it right back into his place. He went on vacation, came back. So, I mean, I have the videos. It's on my YouTube. If you look really far down in my YouTube, you see the difference in this person's life. I was putting up the videos up. People were like, oh, my God, what's going on with the process and everything else? And then what happens after I finished and I walked away, 8 months later, I get a letter in the mail. He took me to court because I didn't pay him back the money that he lent me.
Wow.
So can you imagine what a low blow that was out of the act of kindness that I did? I mean, I gave him a brand new apartment. I had people help me, give me stuff so we could give to him so we could change his life around. And now he's taking me to court. And I panicked. I was like, I hate going to court. I don't know what it is. Even if it has nothing to do.
You don't know what it is. Nobody likes going to court.
Court scares the shit out of me. And I had to, and it was sad that I had to do this, but I had to like get pictures of everything that I bought, take pictures of the before and after, and go to court and prove to the judge this is where the money went. Receipts of everything that I bought for his apartment, all the paints and everything else. And I told him, I said, he's a good friend of mine. He fell off the wagon and he was wasting his money, and I needed to finish this project that we started. And I don't know if you've ever gone to small claims court. That was my first time that you present your case and then they send you home. They don't give you, the judge don't make his decision right there because to avoid conflict. But yeah, a couple of weeks later, I got a mail and a letter in the mail and I won the case. But it made me feel like shit. That I had to go there. I had to go and brag about what I did for you in order for me to get out this, you know, this case. And I thank God that that has not changed me. I thank God that I'm still have the act of kindness. But this is a perfect example of, even when you're kind and things don't go your way, don't let it change you. Don't let it change you. You know, as a matter of fact, I see someone who does not accept my kindness. That's the person I want to be more kind to, because that's the person that needs it the most. The person that doesn't accept it, the person that just acts like it's not even there. Those are the people that need it the most. You know.
I think it's wonderful though that you didn't let that snuff out the flame of kindness. You know, you need to be pretty ferocious even within yourself about protecting that if it's something that's important to you, which anybody out there who thinks that kindness is important, I want to say it is the most important. You got to keep at it. You know, and this is a different kind of story because the ending is happier, and I'm sorry that happened to you, Edgar, but the kindness you brought there was important, and it shows who you are, and you carry that forward. And who knows? You know, you things can happen. Like a guy like that, maybe you find out he was an alcoholic, and then 5 years later he realized the errors of his ways, and he lives a much more kind life. You don't know what's going to happen, but sometimes you get a situation where you don't expect to be recognized. I remember I was talking to a friend of mine in grad school. We were both probably 25, 26 years old, and he was feeling pretty lonely. He just was not feeling like he was connecting with women in the way that he wanted. And he had gone out on this date that he was like, yeah, I had a really good time, but she's too tall for me. And I said to him, I was like, Brad, think about this. Did she seem like she could make you happy? Like, do yourself a kindness and realize that none of that matters. The only thing that matters is, does it make you feel good? Now, this is something that I feel really good about in general, whether he had recognized it or not. He ended up marrying her. They have 3 kids. I think it's 3. Maybe they have 4 now. And so this whole life happened, and my saying something, I easily could have just let that go. I could have been not supportive, and I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying it to show how it impacted things, and then how much it impacted me. On his wedding day, he said to me, I never forgot what you said. And that just that's the highlight of my life.
What did he say?
He just said, what did I say?
I don't know. The Latino in me wants to know. So what did he say?
I wonder, did he say the chick is still tall? I mean, what did he say? Are the kids tall? That's what I want to know.
What I loved about what he said is, he said, I never forgot what you said. And what I said was, listen, sometimes we have trouble giving to ourselves, and we fool ourselves into thinking there's some kind of problem when really we could just give to ourselves. That's what I said to him. On his wedding day, he said, and he's a very quiet guy. He does not. So I never really expected him to say anything. He said, I never forgot what you said. I knew that meant I had changed his life for the better. I mean, that's a highlight of my life right there.
Thank God he had you as a friend. He would have asked me. I'd have said, "Yo, y'all both the same height when you lie down."
Hey, you still would have gotten the point across.
I mean, I'm hoping. I don't know if you would have followed that advice because it's not as eloquent. You know, and be like, "Really, dude?" I'm like, "Well, listen, when you're both lying down, you both about 6-8 inches wide."
Imagine that, like that on his wedding day. The priest say, "Do you take?" And he look at Eric, be like, "Thank you, Eric."
Thank you. I remember.
Same.
I'm gonna take this one lying down.
Yeah, accept kindness, man. Accept kindness. Something as far as like a little thank you could change someone's life. You know. Like
yeah, and Edgar,
you
brought up a great point, by the way, and I want to give you credit for it. What you said, the ones that don't respond to it, you're gonna give it to them more. And why I think that's important is that when people that don't accept kindness, they're probably dealing with so much in their lives, emotionally, maybe even physically, psychologically, that they can barely acknowledge the world around them. Maybe they're not even recognize a moment of kindness is being thrown their way. But like, you know, if you repeat it, you know, just the same way like water can break down rock over time, you might be the one highlight of that person's day with that simple thank you or a simple act of kindness or the opening of the door to the mall that only Edgar goes to. So I think that, you know, you have to keep in mind, like, it may be an insignificant act when we're performing it, but we'll never know the type of impact it has on that person in their day and how much better it made that person's day. So that's the fuel that kind of keeps me going, with just always wanting to be nice, because I could have a positive impact on that person's day in some way, shape, or form by doing something simple. I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm. It goes back to like one of the first episodes that we started doing, Dr. Dan, when I asked you, when you see someone that you feel is going through something, that you feel needs help, or just you know that needs you, and you go up to them and you ask them, "You're right, you need," and they're like, "No, I'm good. No, I'm good." And remember, I asked you, how far should you go? How far should you seek out and see if this person really does need help, or feel comfortable to open up to you? And that's the same way I feel about the kindness. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't get mad. I can't get mad. I don't get mad, and it's sad because most of us expect things. Most of us, we could all stand here right now and say, no, we don't. I don't expect nothing when I do something nice. But deep down inside, we always have a little expectation on things. But the ones that don't show me, those are the ones I'm proud of.
Let
And I
me
hope.
just tweak a word though that I think is going to be helpful. I understand, like, if we expect it, that goes into that problem that Eric was talking about, where it
Mhm,
becomes transactional.
mhm.
But if we hope for it, that's different.
Great distinction. Great distinction there. You hope for it, don't expect it. But
Yep.
and always
the hope is
appreciate it
good.
when you get it. The hope is great.
Right.
I mean, that's Ted Lasso's whole life. You got to have hope
Mhm.
and a bad accent.
Listen, these are a bad accent. That's funny. Listen, hope is an incredibly important thing, and my favorite movie of all time is The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh,
He's
classic.
he says in it, hope isn't dangerous. It is the best of things. I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember this specific quote. I remember lots of quotes from that movie, not that one. But the basic idea is hope is what keeps you alive. It can keep you alive through 19 years in prison in that movie. It can keep all kinds of things moving. And that's where kindness is just so important.
That's another movie that makes me cry at the end when they meet up on the beach.
Oh my God, I know.
Dr. Dan, you didn't cry in that movie either?
No, I listen, I actually cry probably more in movies than anything else.
Yeah,
I,
because the music swells up and you see, the Red's hat flies off and he doesn't even care because he just wants to get to his friend Andy Dufresne.
I just watched Field of Dreams with my kids, and the scene where he gets to have a catch with his dad, which I never got to do. Oh my God.
Nice.
Yeah. That one always gets. I think that gets every guy in the country. You know what I mean? I mean just because it was the first time he said dad when he was about to leave in the cornfield, and he goes, "Hey, dad," and he reverted to a child in his voice and his mannerisms and said, "You want to have a catch?" You know what I mean? Just as he reverted to a little kid. Look, I'm getting misty eyed, but that's. What did your kids think of that movie? By the way, did they think it was a corny movie?
No, well, it was a corny movie, and there was a cornfield, but
Oh,
I'm
Oh,
sorry.
told you.
But actually, no. I raise my kids on this exact ethos we're talking about here. I raise them on the importance of kindness, but not just towards other people, but towards themselves. Like, I don't want them to just go be kind to everybody. I want them also to hope for kindness towards them. And I think they really liked it because of that reason.
I think this whole topic has been interesting. I feel like women are more kind than men. I think you brought this up when it comes to men. So the show is for men. So if you're viewing or listening, I just hope that you're kind. Be kind. See how good it makes you feel. When I'm kind to someone and they don't give me that, they don't acknowledge it. That's the one I feel good about the most. It's weird. It's so weird. I can't even describe. But that's the one I'd be like bendito. They don't know. The one the one that accepts kindness. You'd be like, okay, it makes you feel good. But I don't worry about that person. That person accept it. So when giving kindness, don't expect nothing. Be kind. Do something nice, man. Do something nice and see how it comes back to you in one way or another, because it always does. And as men, I feel we're tough. We're too macho. And it's so hard to be kind, but we need to be more kind to one another. need to start listening to one another, needs to be there for one another, and let's be better men and be kind to each other. That was my Jerry Springer final thought.
Final thoughts from Edgar Rivera, and he's going to win a Grammy for this one. I have a feeling.
Grammy. I'm gonna win. Listen, and it's crazy how we we started the show with Jerry Springer and how Dr. Dan said he was the nicest person in the world. And I mean, I still see Jerry Springer. I put the TV on sometimes in the day if I'm home, and I just put it for background noise. I don't even pay attention to it. But Jerry Springer comes on like around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and through all the craziness in his show, and you're like, oh, crazy people. But then at the end, he gives you like that final thought, and it's like interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter how crazy these people are, what he just said made a lot of sense. So yeah, thank you.
Doesn't he end the show by saying, "Be kind to yourself and one another"? Isn't that his like tagline?
That does sound familiar, but I don't remember.
It's either "be good to yourselves and each other." It's something along those lines. But the fact that they just showed 2 pregnant women fighting over a guy who hasn't seen a dentist since ever. But at the end of the day, be good to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just started to Google it, and Jerry Springer, "Be kind to each other" comes up as the
you see what I mean? So line. Even Jerry Springer, amongst all the chaos, that is a microcosm of the world. The world may be Betty Sue beating up Anna for taking Frank away from her and moving to the other trailer, but in the end, be kind to yourself and each other.
Did that man that you talked about get him that trailer? Oh.
It's all come full circle now.
You see how the callbacks are working? Yes. Now, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to mention episodes, and then the screen will become wavy, and then we'll show clips from previous shows. Like, oh, remember that question we asked in the first episode, Dr. Dan?
Oh, the Wayne's World.
Yeah, kind of flashback to the other. You know how all the flashback episodes in all the 80s sitcoms, like, remember what we did for Christmas? Boy, I do. And then they show the scene from 2 years ago. So we could do that for this show. Be like, remember that time we were talking about depression?
We're gonna
Boy, I do.
Yeah.
We're getting into enough episodes that we can start to do it now.
Exactly.
There you go. So Joe, for all the viewers and listeners, man, thank you for tuning in always as you do. If you've done an act of kindness or received kindness, please comment down below. Let us know. And remember, man, the only way we could be better people is by being kind to one another, no matter where we're from, no matter what nationality you're from. I mean, just be nice. Just be nice and don't expect nothing from it. And hopefully one day it'll come back around and help you. And
it will benefit you. It will benefit you. And it'll benefit you in the long run. But mentally, spiritually, physically, it's worth the investment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I usually take us out, but I want to say some final thoughts. So some Jerry Springer, just a little bit.
Yeah, that was a new segment.
Well, I mean, this is just this is
Dr.
just brief.
Dan's RX.
This is just brief, but I like it. You know, and speaking of kindness, you two are incredibly kind people. At least you have been to me, and I hear it across the board, and I see it in the way that you are, and I just want to thank you for it. But I also want to thank the people who watch this, because especially, look, I can't thank all of them, but I can especially thank the ones who are kind about it, who see what we're trying to do, who share that. It certainly keeps me going. I don't know if I imagine it does for you guys too. Really nice to hear, and I like what we have going here. I just want to thank you too for that.
And I like the comments. Big fat shout out to Scotty G, who comments on every video. I mean, I've never met this dude, Dr. Dan. You probably know him, but I like the comments and I like the feedback. So please do comment below and give us the feedback. And
thank you for your kindness too, Dr. Dan.
Yes.
All kidding aside.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Guys, I'll take us out here if you're ready.
We're ready.
You just look like you were being held hostage there. We can't.
I know what happened.
All right, guys. If you haven't already, click subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, hit like if you like what you're hearing, and put your comments below, and we will get back to you personally.
Yes, and be kind, brothers in arms.
Brothers in arms. Primordial.
I was waiting for it.
I was waiting for it. So I was looking and I was like, wait, what happened?
No,